Hello, this is David King here. I just want to share a few thoughts today on suffering. The world continues to suffer because of the coronavirus, impacting directly or indirectly most of us. Alongside the virus, suffering continues in many forms. Suffering caused by disease and war and terrorism, famine and abuse. So many forms of physical, mental and spiritual trauma and hardship. During his passion, Jesus suffered much. And the English word passion comes from the Greek word to suffer. Jesus endured intense suffering. When I start to think about suffering and the Christian faith, my mind often goes to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, we're told about the horrendous struggle of Jesus in that garden when he was deserted by his disciples. The suffering of Jesus was at night. My father used to speak about German airships flying over East Yorkshire to bomb the city of Hull. It was often at night when one of the raids took place. And one of the raids took place, he used to say, on the night he was born. The work of the lifeboat crew, the fire brigade and other rescue services must seem far more demanding at night. And our own struggles can often seem worse in the middle of the night. There's no wonder that the monks came up with the term the dark night of the soul. If we look to the New Testament book of the letter to the Hebrews, we have Jesus the high priest, one who is described as he who sympathises with our human weakness, our trauma, our crisis, our suffering, even when it seems especially bad at night. When we think about the suffering of Jesus in Gethsemane, he also was a person who suffered in isolation. My grandparents kept poultry. At Christmas, or for that matter any other time of year, they would never leave just one duck alive. I was told that if one was left alive, it would probably die of isolation. During a sabbatical I had a few years ago, I spent some time reading, but also working, staying on a farm on Dartmoor, which was a Christian project. The farm had just 2 geese. And one night the fox came and killed one of them. It wasn't long before the other goose was found dead for no apparent reason other than isolation. I know some people very much enjoy their own company. Yet at this time we continue to support and remember in our prayers those who feel stress because of isolation. At this time our thoughts go out to many people of all ages who live alone. Our Saviour Jesus endured isolation. He knew its meaning, he experienced its pressure, yet now risen, he promises to be with us always. May we ever hang on to the words of Jesus, and surely I will be with you always to the end of the age. We all know only too well that suffering is part of life. Stephen Walker on a number of occasions has quoted the Methodist Covenant Prayer. In its traditional form, the prayer uses some unusual words. They are, "put me to suffering." The person praying is not asking God to give them suffering, but asking that when suffering comes their way, they may be able to be a witness and still glorify God by their daily living. Some of the richest Christian witness I've seen has been from the lives of people who are suffering, many who have been wonderfully used by God. I think of the lady with acute illness and pain, who would seldom get out of bed. She was always a blessing to the people who visited her, and those who heard her Christian reflections on the local radio. The radio station took its equipment to her bedside. It's important for us to reflect on the suffering of Jesus. His suffering was at night when it seemed particularly bad. It was in isolation, and yet through that suffering, including the way of the cross, it led to the joy of Easter Day. St. Luke tells us, did not the Christ have to suffer these things and then enter glory? No matter what our suffering is, the hope of the Christian faith is that ultimately, at the end of suffering, whatever shape or form, there is the entering of glory. That is why for the Christian, even in suffering, there is great hope.